Hello and welcome to True Audio Files, and my name is Jim Carter. So I'm going to go and beat a dead horse. For those of you who have been on social media and the audiophile Facebook groups, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to this whole Mofi situation. But for those of you who haven't, Mobile Fidelity was interviewed by Mike from the In Groove, a record store in Arizona, USA, and he basically got them to admit that they make a digital transfer of the original master tapes, analog master tapes, to then cut to vinyl. These are done, and to be clear also, and they explained it, they actually use their own equipment, travel to wherever those tapes are, and ship their equipment, their reel-to-reel deck, their analog-to-digital converter, and all the whatever else other equipment they need to copy these tapes. So it's not a, and so to be clear on this, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is they're not taking a transfer that someone else did and making a master. At least that's the way they've explained it. Now, it's possible maybe that they have done that, but we don't know. Hopefully we'll know soon, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But so anyways, they go to wherever the master tape is with their equipment, and then they transfer that tape, or tapes, I should say, to digital, high resolution digital, some of the highest resolution you could possibly get in high resolution digital. It's called a 4x DSD, or DSD 4x, whatever you want to call it, probably 4x DSD. So they try to capture as much information digitally as they can from the master tape, and then bring it back to their mastering facility and cut the records and master the SACDs from there. So the point of this video is to kind of go over some of the things I've been seeing on social media a lot since the announcement. And some of the stuff I sort of kind of covered already in my last video before they made it official that they made digital copies. But some of it hasn't been gone over, and some of it's from some of the things I've seen on social media. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is, the thing that you see all the time, and there's even been some YouTube videos trying to prove that they've lied. And I'll kind of go over some of those specific things and let you know my opinion on it, my take on it. Probably not going to be a popular one, but hopefully some of you will agree, and you're more than happy to discuss with me. But so one of the first things was that, they've been lying all these years, or they've been misleading me all these years, that they've been making straight analog, full analog copies, cuts to vinyl. So they definitely have not lied that I have seen, and I'll go over some of the quote-unquote proof that people have had. But, let's start with the marketing. There's definitely nothing in the marketing that says specifically that they cut from the original master analog tape. In most cases, it's admittedly misleading, or can be construed as misleading, but they do say they start, in many cases they'll start with the original master recording, they'll start with the original master tape, and then they will kind of blur over probably some of the other processes, and then they cut the lacquers. And my response to that is, this is marketing. And they're making a generic statement about the process that they go through to make records. And they're not going to list details that aren't done on every single record. We don't know for sure, but let's say for argument's sake, they still do occasional straight analog cuts. They're not going to list that they convert to digital on there if they do that. They're also not going to say that they convert to digital, the analog tape to digital, if they've got a digital recording, there's probably a great chance that they don't convert that digital master tape to digital again. So maybe they do, but my guess is they don't. So those are some of the factors. So again, marketing about the generic steps in the process, and they want to basically include all the steps that are in every single reissue that they do. And they're not going to go over, they're not going to list steps that aren't done on every single one. So that's part of it, at least in my view. Okay. The second thing was there's been a video around where a couple of the mastering engineers from Mobile Fidelity are talking about their all analog process and their whole all analog path. And they also later in the video talk about their digital path that they have as well. And there's a lot of confusion, and a lot of people seem to think that they're saying that that's the only thing they have at Mobile Fidelity in terms of they only have this analog path for creating records. But they don't say that. They just say, they have this all analog path. And yes, I'm nitpicking, but it's important to understand why I'm nitpicking, because they're not going out there and saying this is the only way we cut records, because they can't. For several reasons, not the least of which is some of the stuff that they do, like Nightfly by Donald Fagen and Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits are two prime examples. Those are digital recordings that they're mastering from. So they're not going to have an all analog process on those records at all, because they don't start analog. So they have the ability to do all analog if they have an original master tape or an analog tape of some sort. They're able to do an all analog cut if they choose to do that. It sounds like in most cases recently they've been sticking to digital, so they have the ability to do that too, so they can do both. And they were talking in the video specifically about their all analog process, but they have the ability to do both. And when they were talking about their digital process, that they have a separate mastering setup that's for SACD only. Or at least that's my assumption. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me on that. But my understanding is, they've got a mastering suite for the SACDs, and then they've got the all analog chain for vinyl, which they can modify to be digital at the front to accommodate the digital recordings that they have, whether it be the digital copies that they make or original digital recordings. So they have the ability to go any direction they want. So I think those are a lot of the big things that have been out there that claim that they're lying. I guess you can say because they're not talking about the other things that they do, or guilt by omission, I guess you can argue that. But I don't see why they would want to advertise that they're doing it that way. In my opinion, and I will say this again because I've said it many times, in my opinion, they should explain the process that they go through on every release. So every release would have a unique piece of paper or something in the release saying, okay, this is the process we did for this release. And hopefully they'll start doing that. It sounds like they want to start doing that. So let's see if they do. It'd be nice if they do. One last one that I did see floating around there on the internet is some correspondence back and forth between a Mobile Fidelity customer service representative and whoever it was that was talking to them. And the person was asking if it was an all analog transfer of whatever title it was, and I don't even remember what title it was. And asking the difference between original master recording heading type that they have, because some of them say original master recording, some say Mobile Fidelity Studios or Mobile Fidelity Labs. And the customer services representative's explanation was, when it says original master recording, they use the original analog master tape to cut it to the lacquers. And then they said if it says Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, they can't guarantee it was the original master. So right away, in my opinion, you can now, unless they're talking about a specific title, and quite frankly, I don't remember if they were in this particular case, but I think they were. But unless they're talking about a specific title, they can't say that in generalities, because of what I mentioned before. If they're doing Dire Straits, or they're doing Donald Fagen, or if they're doing any other release that was originally digitally recorded and mixed and mastered. So right there, if they're talking in generalities, they're wrong. And I know that I've seen some other situations where the customer service reps did not have the correct information. And now, you could say they were lying on that one, most definitely, but I think that unless you hear, say, someone who's more in the know, like the mastering engineer or some higher up executives, I don't think the intent was to deceive and I don't think they thought or knew any better. So in other words, I don't think they knew that there may be a additional step for digital when they made those replies back to people on email. So I don't think there was any intent. I don't think they intentionally lied. I don't think they knew they lied. I think they responded based on what they thought they knew, and it was incorrect. So I guess those are all the lies that I wanted to debunk, if you will. I know it leaves people with a sour taste in their mouth. It definitely leaves me with a sour taste in my mouth, because I was feeling kind of cool, and I thought it was great that they were doing all analog processes here, but they aren't. But at the same time, as I've mentioned many times already before, my main thing, and I think the engineers spelled it out perfectly here, is the main thing is how the final product sounds. And in their mind and in their view, if you want to watch the video, maybe I'll put a link to it in the description, is their goal was to get it as close to the master tape from the sound perspective as they could, since they could not bring the tapes back to their engineering and to their facility to do the mastering. Or they weren't allowed to maybe make 10 passes, 10 cuts to lacquers and play it over and over and over again. So it sounds like they tried doing analog copies, and then they tried doing this digital process, and they felt, and their opinion was, that the digital recording was the closest sound to the original master tape. And that's why they did it. I can't fault them for that if that's what they feel, especially since a large percentage of my Mobile Fidelity product that I own are my favorite sounding version of the album, hands down. I've got a bunch, and you probably can go back and look at a lot of my sound quality shootouts. There are very few times where I have a Mobile Fidelity record that I do a shootout with that it doesn't beat even the original first pressing, or any other kind of audiophile reissues. But there has been a couple, and like the Rolling Stones' "Some Girls" was one of them that I thought it didn't sound as good as the Japanese pressing, but it doesn't happen very often. And I'm pretty sure back then they were doing straight from the analog tape, although I could be wrong. So, because that was done in the 80s. So that's basically what I'm thinking. That's my thought about it. I've been very active in the Mobile Fidelity Facebook groups because of my lack of being able to have self-control in responding to people that are calling people liars and thinking that you're going to be able to have class action lawsuits, because you're just not going to be able to, just because they didn't lie. They left things out, and again, they can probably easily say they left them out because the marketing was designed to talk generically about their processes, and they're not going to add things into the marketing that is only done to a few of the releases, or even if it's most of the releases. If it's not all of them, they're not going to want to put that information in. So did they intentionally deceive people? We don't know. We don't know what their intent was. Maybe they did. The engineers, I sure don't think they did. I don't think there's any fault in there for them. I don't think they tried to deceive anybody, because it's not their job or their role to put information into the marketing. It's the marketing team that does that. And, we don't, again, know the intent of the marketing team. If the intent was to just list everything that is done to all of the products in that process, they're going to leave the stuff out that isn't done every single time. Like, they don't always, from what I can gather, and we'll find out maybe more detail later, they don't always make a digital copy of the master tape before cutting it to a lacquer. So that's my story. I would be more than happy to have discussions with you guys on this matter. Can do it either in the comment section on this video, or I've got the True Audio Files Facebook group on Facebook that I've got a link to in the description. And I also am available on Twitter and Instagram, although I don't really check those as often as I do the Facebook group. But love to hear your thoughts on this. If you liked this video, please like the video. If you don't like it, tell me why in the comment sections. I'd really appreciate that. I wouldn't mind having the discussions in further detail with you. But if you liked this video and you want to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. And then, if you want to know when my new videos come out, hit that alert bell that I've got there. So I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope this Mofi news didn't upset you too much. It bothered me a little bit, but it bothered me more the people that were saying things on social media that just weren't accurate and were trying to prove the people that were lying, and they just weren't. So anyway, I guess there's a fine line between lying and misleading for some people, and sometimes for some people there's no line. But I don't know if there was an intent to mislead people, but is the bottom line. So that's everything I've got. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you back here soon. Thanks a lot.